Today's tutorial is on making a foxtail. So today we're going to make foxtails using a tennis ball, some yarn, and a crochet needle. So the way that we start, I'll put that over here, is we want to cover the tennis ball by crocheting all the way around the tennis ball. So I like to use a magic loop to get started, or a circle, but for those of you who like to do it simpler, you can always just do 3 stitches here and then go right into your first stitch. And then just start going around like that. But for me, I really like to do the circle here. So you go in, grab your stitch, and then I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to pull it tight. And then you have a really lovely circle. Now, I'm sure there are exact number of stitches you can do to cover the tennis ball in a perfect circle, but the way that I do it, not being an expert, I just measure. So if I think I need to add a little more, a few more stitches to go out, then I just add another stitch in the seam as before. And then I just keep going until it gets bigger and bigger. And I measure. It looks like it's starting to cover up. And so I keep crocheting and adding stitches where I need to make the circle get bigger. And then eventually, once the circle is big enough, we're going to have to start decreasing stitches. Right there, that's a nice start to our tennis ball. So I'll just speed it up here a little bit and come back when we get to the halfway point. But again, you just keep going, you keep adding stitches if you need to in order to make your circle get bigger and eventually turn into a bowl that will cup your tennis ball until it gets halfway around. All right, here we go. So now we're at the point where we have a little bowl that fits perfectly around our tennis ball. And we've come to the point now where we need to start decreasing our stitches so that the entire tennis ball is covered. And it will look like a crocheted little ball. And so we start crocheting around, but now we're going to start decreasing. So here I did 1 into 1 stitch, grabbed a loop in the next, and then we're going to pull it together, and that's how we're going to decrease our stitches. So in 1, in 2, until we have all 3 there, and then pull it through. Now not every stitch is going to need a decrease, so I may just do some single ones here as I go along. And again, that's something you just want to eyeball as you go. If it feels like it needs to decrease, then you just make a decrease. Because you don't want it to be too loose. So if you start seeing like little gaps like this or something like that, then you want to start decreasing. So that way it's nice and snug against the tennis ball here. And we're going to keep doing that pattern of decreasing until you can no longer see the tennis ball. And it takes a little time to get used to crocheting around a tennis ball, but it's not too hard. Here I'm going to do another decrease after several singles. And I'll keep going with some singles. And I'll speed this up a little bit and I'll come to you when we get a little closer to the edge. But just keep going. Same idea as the increase, but this time we're just decreasing. So that way all the stitches hug the ball. The closer to the top, the more decreases you're going to do. Here we have the tennis ball almost all covered. It's fitting pretty well. So we're just at the last few steps here to cover the ball. Then we'll need to add our foxtail. So here we'll do a decrease, then a few singles, then another decrease, and a few singles, another decrease, couple singles, another decrease, couple singles, oopsies, couple singles, coming to the end. So now we're just going to do several decreases in a row so we can seal up our tennis ball. So decrease, decrease, decrease. And then there's only a few stitches remaining. We're going to sew up that last little bit there. All right, so we're going to leave a bit of a string to sew in. that last stitch, pull the string through, pull tight, and we're just going to sew our string into these last stitches to each one so we make it all the way around the full circle. And then pull tight. Now this section really, you don't need to worry too much about what it looks like because we're going to sew right around the middle here. And this is going to be covered with a tail that comes out here. But to secure it, I just like to sew a little bit here and there. And it should be just fine because, again, this will be sewed, covered up with fabric for the tail of our foxtail. All right, so there you have it. Your beautiful tennis ball now crocheted and covered with orange yarn. Here's a piece of fabric that I cut for the tail. And so we'll sew that together and then eventually sew it onto our ball here. And so it'll look something like this. I chose bright colors because when you're throwing this outside, you'll want to be able to find it. But before you sew, you want to turn your fabric inside out. And then you may sew. Now, if you have a sewing machine, I highly recommend that, but if you don't, thread and needle work just fine. We'll start here at the top, and we'll leave just a little bit here to fold that under for when we sew it onto our ball there. And then just in and out. The smaller the stitch, the better the seam. I'm just going to do larger stitches so you can see. But you want to go all the way to the bottom here, sewing, and then you want to make your way all the way back up. We'll stop here and come back. We'll speed that up. Okay, so we sewed all the way down one side and up all the way the other side. And now what we can do, and again I did big stitches so that you can see, but I highly recommend doing much smaller stitches for a tighter seam or using your sewing machine. That would probably be best for sturdiness and keeping it sewn together. But what we're going to do is turn it inside out and attach it to our ball. So we're going to turn our tail inside out. And sometimes for that last little bit, a knitting needle can go right in. And you can push out that last little bits. And we'll use the sharp end. Just want to make sure you don't go through. Oh, like that. Ah! There you go. Perfect. All right, so there we go. We got our tail. And now, time to sew it on. So we're just going to tuck this part in a little bit. So it has a nice smooth edge. Attach it to our ball. now it's time to sew it on. Tuck the tail in right there. We'll just do little stitches all about. You want to make sure that when you're sewing that it's going through the orange yarn. That way it stays in place. For good measure, I think I'll probably go around twice to make sure that when the foxtail is in use that it really stays. So you don't want the tail falling off. Alright, so we almost made it around once. And I think I'll sew it one more time around, but this time I think I'll do the stitch a little differently. Instead of in and out, I'm going to go up through the orange here to really secure it on. Oh, not too high though. Now the reason I recommend bright colors is that if you throw your foxtail, you can't find it, or your dog can't find it if you choose to use this for your dog. Having bright colors makes it a lot easier to find if by accident it falls somewhere where you can't seem to find it. Almost done. To finish off, I'm just going to go over the same spot a few times. And I'll cut the string and we'll all be done. There you have it, your very own foxtail. Let's take it outside and give it a whirl.